Hello and welcome everybody. Today I have with me again my lovely girlfriend Tamar. Hi.
Hi.
We talked about a lot of stuff in the last time we went live, and we felt like there's a lot more to talk about. Today we want to not talk about anything that we planned to talk about last time. Because there are so many different new things that come up, and it's like I don't know, it's like a roller coaster. Good morning from Canada. Good afternoon from occupied Palestine. What was I saying? Oh, it's like there's so much new stuff coming again and again and again all the time. And so many different subjects and so many things that Tamar and I talk about on a daily basis. And I feel like it's an endless process of becoming more aware and more precise in the way that we see things and deeper. Tamar, you want to say some stuff before we begin, or just tell the audience what we want to talk about today while I try to make the camera, the shot a little bit nicer.
Yeah. So yes, we had some pretty clear ideas about the things that we wanted to talk about. I mean, a lot of things, but specifically today that we wanted to focus on. And then something happened yesterday, which both derailed our live that we planned on doing yesterday, as well as now gave us new material. And this is something that we're going to address, but I think that it's very connected to all the other things that we did want to talk about. So through it, we'll also get to talking some of the things that we've planned on talking and continuing from the previous episode.
River is saying hello from the United States, aka occupied Turtle Island. Hello from Israel, aka occupied Palestine. Same kind of phenomenon. Different stages, different scales and different stages. Okay, so Tamar, you want to tell our audience where we want to begin from?
Well, I think I'm gonna pass it over to you to actually tell the story. But yesterday there was a very difficult experience for Alon, but I was really with him, like all along the way, and emotionally.
Yeah, it would have been way more difficult without your support. You really helped me stay in my element, even though you will hear I didn't completely stay in my element. Okay, I admit this.
But like I felt I really experienced it with you as as it was going on. So yeah, I think it's the best thing just to start kind of telling what happened, and we'll go from there.
There's a question here. Did you ever go on Noah Samson's stream? I need to address this. We had plans to do it, and then I don't know exactly what happened. It was like some problem with the scheduling. What I imagine, he didn't tell me exactly, but what I imagine is that he was on stream for a really long time and he like had to sleep, and then everything got screwed up with the schedule, and he was really apologetic about it, and we couldn't come on his stream this time. But he did say that next time that he does something like this, he would be really happy to have us on with like more planning, because it was all like spontaneous, and then it didn't happen in the end. I was a little disappointed because it could have been an opportunity to talk to a big audience and have a lot of people listen to our point of view as anti-Zionists living in Palestine. But that didn't happen. He said probably next time that he does it, which he's planning on doing, he's really excited to talk to us. I hope that it does happen. Okay, so I had to say, because the name of the channel, the Hebrew Canaanite, was on the schedule, and then it fell through. Okay, so never mind. Anyway, so let's go back to the subject. So let me give some background. Okay, so the background is that there is Oh, well, I came here from him, so he still got a new fan. Okay, wonderful. So still good things happened because of it. Anyway, so thank you for joining this. I don't know, community. This word seems weird to me to use, but still, thank you for joining us and listening to what we have to say. Okay, so. There is a WhatsApp group that is dedicated for organizing leftist activities in Haifa, in the city that we live in the occupied Palestinian city of Haifa. And I say leftist, and something in me is wondering whether I should put air quotes when I say leftist. And so it's dedicated to organizing like events, like protests against the genocide and protests against Zionism. But it is and for discussions, like general discussions about, leftist issues, but it is a kind of eclectic conglomerate of different points of view, some of them more worthy of the term leftist than others. And I think it's really important to realize how much this term, the left, the political left, has been appropriated and twisted and used in an intentionally wrong manner all around the world, but specifically and especially in the Zionist cult in Israel, the Zionist cult. The Israeli political spectrum, when people speak about the left in Israel, they mean it's like worse than the US, okay? It's even worse than the US. They mean like you can be a leftist if you're slightly liberal. Then you will be called a leftist, okay? So to me, there is a very clear definition for what the left is. Someone on the left is someone who objects to hierarchical systems, who objects to oppression, who objects to control, who objects to power being held by the few and being used against the many. This is the position of the left, in my opinion. Those who tell me you are just gatekeeping, why are you inventing definitions, blah blah blah, always, if I ask them, okay, so what is your definition of the left, they will not give a clear definition of the left. And I think that this is very telling. Okay, I think that this is very telling. Okay, so this is as opposed to the right that supports a hierarchical system, that supports the aggregation of power, that supports oppression, that supports inequality, that supports war, and so forth and so on. Okay, very clear in my opinion. So this group, some of the people in this group, I would definitely wholeheartedly say that they are on the left. There is a big question of whether I should agree to call people leftists when they are carnists, when they oppress animals. And my clear answer is no, they are not leftists. But this creates like problems, right? Because then people who like are leftists on the humanist scale, on the scale of humans, I cannot work with them. So this is like a pragmatic question, which we talk about pragmatism and all this. But like just my basic analysis of terms says that people who oppress non-human animals are definitely not on the left. And I'm sorry if you are hearing this and you get upset because you like thinking about yourself as someone who is on the left, but then I tell you, no, you're not on the left. But maybe this means that you should think about, you like thinking that you're on the left. You like thinking that you're against oppression, but you're participating in oppression. Okay, so maybe stop participating in oppression, and then you can continue calling yourself someone who is against oppression. Okay, but this is a different discussion from what we wanted to have right now. This gets very complicated.
Yes,
this gets very complicated. Point is, it's a leftist group, okay? Whatever that means. And a few days ago in this group, a woman who is Palestinian and who is I think a higher up member of the political party called Hadash. So the political party called Hadash is the so-called, like it's a communist leftist party that's based on cooperation between Palestinians and Jews in Israel. Okay, so it's a party in the Israeli parliament. Here is a claim that I think should be obvious. If a political party is part of the Israeli parliament, then it is in some way part of the Zionist regime. This is a party that gives explicit legitimacy to the state of Israel and to the Zionist regime. Okay, this is just, I think, a true claim, an
it's
obvious
interesting
claim.
to think because there's also a few other parties.
Yeah.
Dam.
So Dam, I don't know what that. I don't know if they're anti-Zionists. I don't know.
And it is connected to this other thing that we wanted to talk about having this what they maybe believe to be a pragmatic approach, fighting the system from within.
I have to answer this. I have to answer what is written in the chat. It's you want to answer it?
What's the question?
I both agree and disagree with that. I think we are so far away from getting to that point where we stop oppressing animals. First, we have to figure out how to work together to stop the genocide.
Oh, you want to talk about it because this is a whole kind of different discussion.
It annoys me. I cannot leave this. This is why I got in trouble in the WhatsApp group, in the leftist WhatsApp group. I cannot leave this. I cannot.
Yes. Oh well, yeah. I mean, of course, I think.
Also, I spoke for a long time, so maybe you can say something.
Yes. But then let's go back to the story because it's quite a story, and I think it's really, really important. And from there, we can also talk about many things. But about this first. So you're speaking as a human, and if you belonged to the group of beings called cows or chickens or pigs, surely you would not say, let's first solve the genocide between this group of humans and that group of humans, or that's part of the world. Surely you would say, first help me and get me out of this murderous death camp. And this is the same as trillions of other animals that are enslaved right now in the industries would say. So this is perspective taking from the point of view of the oppressor, and the oppressor will be the one to be deciding what are the most important things. And of course, conveniently, the person or the people or the individuals that they're oppressing is not going to be highest on their list to liberate from the oppression. So I have no doubt that that's where that statement is coming from.
I can give another point here. So let's compare this to how Zionists speak.
Yes.
For a long time, and still ongoing, even in this situation, there was a social protest in Israel against the judicial reform and against the evil government of Bibi. Okay, and a lot of people told me, you should join these protests. You should join these protests. And I had a lot of deliberations about this. This was like 3-4 years ago, and I was still going through the process of becoming truly radical. And one of the things that convinced me that this protest was definitely not my place to be is that the people in this protest kept telling me when I raised the subject of the occupation that I was still talking about the occupation, okay? Because I was still a liberal Zionist in some sense, okay? I was on my way to becoming radical and anti-Zionist, but I was talking about the occupation, about the oppression of the Palestinians, the part of it that I was aware of, okay? And they said, stop talking about this. First, we need to solve the problems of Israeli society, and after that, we will think about the oppression of the Palestinians.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that this is exactly the same mode of thinking. Let's first solve our own problems and then solve the problems of others. But the problem is when you think about us and them and separate. This is the basic problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is the basic problem from which everything stems.
Yes.
So the separation between Jewish Israelis, or Israelis in general, we will talk about this, Israelis in general, and those Palestinians who are them that do not deserve protection.
Mm-hmm.
And again, the separation, and those separations, this separation between Israelis and Palestinians is manufactured and fake, okay? And the very same thing can be said about the separation between humans, the animals. So there are animals, and animals have different species, okay? Like humans have different nationalities, like humans have different ethnicities, okay? Like humans have different sexes or genders or sexual orientations or economic, socioeconomic background and so forth and so on,
Mm-hmm.
or tendencies. Animals have different species, and one of those species happens to be called Homo sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
And I and Tamar and Robert, who is commenting here, happen to belong to the group of Homo sapiens. But there are many other animals. Actually, Homo sapiens on a numerical scale are 0.00000000001% of the animal world. We're a tiny drop in the ocean of the animal world, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And this separation between humans and other animals is as manufactured and fake as the separation between Israelis and non-Israelis, between Jews and non-Jews. It's the same kind of thing and the same kind of thinking of separation that allows those people who belong to the powerful group say, oh, first let's take care of ourselves and then we'll take care of them.
So I want to say two more things about
Yes.
this, and then let's go back to the story. I'm really keen for you to tell that and to get into that.
Yeah.
So the first thing with animal liberation is that if we talk about the level of, before even being activist, before even going to protest or do any kind of activism, of course, there's nothing at all preventing you from being vegan, and this is the baseline thing. If you say, okay, I'd rather go to marches for free Palestine than marches for free the animals, then
I disagree. We disagree.
Yeah, this is my second point I'll get to in a second, but okay, I'll put this to the side for a moment. But surely you don't have to actively participate in their enslavement while you're eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner. This is absolute no bearing on what you do, how you spend your time the rest of your day. And if you go to protests for Palestine, that's great. Most people just stay at home and watch movies, right? So that's a net positive thing. And it doesn't have to be, oh, no, you should have gone to an animal march. No, you did something, and this is a really net positive thing. But surely, first, do no harm. So obviously don't take active part in the Holocaust and be vegan. So the second point is that
let's say this explicitly. This ranking of what's more important or what's less important cannot be an excuse to someone actively participating in the oppression.
Yes.
Right? You can say it's more important to me to resist the oppression of one group than another group. I will argue with you, okay?
Yes.
But I will argue with this after I tell you that what you said has no bearing on you choosing to actively participate in the oppression of others, right?
Yes.
And by the way, vegan Zionists love to say stop talking about the oppression of the Palestinians. We need to talk about the oppression of non-human animals first. And this, by the way, is a better argument than the argument on the other side, which I'm sure Tamar will explain in a moment, right? That's what you were going to explain. But I disagree with them the same. I'm saying you don't have to participate in the oppression of Palestinians to right. This is the same kind of thing.
Even if you don't want to devote your energies to fighting for the freedom, obviously don't take part in their oppression.
Yeah, don't go to the army and shoot Palestinians and tell me I'm doing this because I'm vegan.
So
right, it's the same kind of logic.
At least be truly neutral. You know, don't harm. And you know, maybe if you don't want to do something active, that's something else. So the second point is that there is no. So the first part of this is that really there's no need to do this ranking, but you know, looking objectively, we talked about this many times. So objectively, if we take human supremacy out of the equation, if we take this idea that humans are more important than other animals out of the equation, then objectively the animal holocaust is far, far, far worse than anything else. But I want to say actually something else now is that I think there was this concern, and this is where the statement comes from. First, shall we focus on this because it's going to harm somehow the Free Palestine movement if we bring the animal issue into it. And so I believe the opposite to be true. I think not only does it not contradict, I think they inform each other, and I think intersectionality is very important, and it serves both causes when you're being consistent in opposing all oppression. So I think when you're vegan and you're vocal about it, you're also a better activist for Palestine, and
the other way
versa.
around.
Yes. So I think not only does it, now I'm forced to be either pragmatic or be what's the word, or to be principled, but it both goes in the same direction. I think it's a better form of activism, and it's actually makes you a better activist for all things. So
I think both of us are living examples of this. I am a better activist for Palestine because I'm an activist for non-human animals. I'm a better activist for non-human animals because I'm an activist for Palestine. Tamar, the way that she stopped being a Zionist, which is a recent development, was that that she was able to see these principles of systems of oppression and control and supremacy and so forth. She saw this in the context of the oppression of non-human animals, and then it was much easier to translate this to the context of the oppression of Palestinians by the Zionist regime. Okay, so this is one big process of opposing oppression, oppression.
Yes, and you can reach a deeper understanding. If you're an intersectionalist and if you see oppression in different realms and you see how the patterns and you see the mechanisms and you see the way in which the system works, and I think it makes you an all-around better activist. So far from it harming any movement, I think it really just makes you better, stronger as an activist.
Let's do a live session that's dedicated to this question of intersectionalism, because Tamar and I think about this so much.
And maybe I'll say just on a personal note that I used to be pretty apolitical about what's happening in Israel and Palestine. And one of the reasons for this was that I said, I just want everyone to dedicate themselves to the liberation of animals. And I was worried from the other side that if we're going to divide it in left and right, it's going to harm the animal movement, because then there's going to be all these splits in the movement, and there's so few of us as is, we should all unite, and this is going to expedient.
Which is the same kind of worry Robert is presenting here
from the other side. Exactly. And now I think I was wrong. Now I think that I can understand the concern because I had it myself, but I think it's not right. But yeah, this is a whole different.
But here's the thing. Ever since we are going through a process together of becoming more radical in all aspects, okay? And can I say about you, Tamar? I experience you as way more radical, even in the context of veganism, as a result of being radical in the context of Palestine. Is this true?
Yes, yes. And then we need to, of course, talk about why radicalism is also the pragmatic way.
Which is another question.
But this is a whole different discussion, which we have scheduled. But this is probably for another.
Okay, so I must say that I really wish that I can convince Tamar to go live with me on this channel like every other day. Okay? Because we talk so much, and I think that there's so many points that we want to make and to make public, and to have a discussion about in a public way, not just between us, which is important, okay? But I want everyone to hear our discussions because I think they are important, and we work really hard on understanding what is going on and how to make this world a better place by talking to each other, okay? And this is the tool that we use, okay? By doing all kinds of activism as well, but mainly we just talk, okay? And yeah, Robert is apologizing. No, please don't apologize. This is
no, it's fine. Yeah,
please.
it's good.
We want the points to be made so that we can make give the answers because it's important. This is a discussion that needs to be had. It's critical.
It's a really important discussion, and it's something that comes up again and again and again. And it actually also came up in a way during the incident yesterday.
Okay.
But I think we'll also, in addition to talking about it kind of sideways today, in terms of what happened yesterday, we will dedicate a separate episode, really do a conversation, because there's so much to say about it, and to explain about it, and also to bring our experiences for your life in it, why we think this way. It's not just that we just woke up one day and decided that this is what's right, but it's really something that's born of
a lot of experience, a lot
of thinking, and a lot of observations.
Yes. Let's go back to the story. So in this WhatsApp group, a Palestinian woman who is a high-ranking member of this political party, Hadash, which is a Zionist political party. Okay, it's I need to say something. Sometimes 48 Palestinians are Zionists. Okay, this is just a thing.
Did you say that she's a Palestinian, but she lives in
she's a 48 Palestinian. She has an Israeli identity card.
Yes.
Okay, she has. It says
she doesn't live in occupied territory outside of the.
Yeah, she lives within the 48 lines. Okay, she has. It says Israel on her passport as well. Okay, she has an Israeli identity card. Okay, and sometimes 48 Palestinians are Zionists. Why? Because they were born into the Zionist cult as well, in a different part of the different position within the Zionist cult from where I was born in, or from where Tamar was born in. Okay, Tamar was born in the Netherlands branch of the Zionist cult, right? Okay, in the so there are a lot of branches to this cult. Okay, and there are a lot of different positions to be born inside this cult, inside this hierarchical, oppressive system. Okay. And 48 Palestinians were also born into this cult. They also are subjugated to propaganda, to indoctrination, and to material and societal pressures. Okay, this is just a true thing. This woman who works in the Hadash party gets her salary from working for this party. Her livelihood depends on the Zionist regime because she has a specific place in the Zionist regime, and the Zionist regime rewards her financially every single month with a salary to collaborate with it.
Yes.
Okay?
And maybe that's the point to say, where it's not a matter of pointing the finger and judging and saying, hey, you're such a bad person for doing it. I think it's just an observation, and it's very understandable, especially if you are a born Palestinian. Then the very best way for you to function in this society is to cooperate, is to play along in some way. And she does it in some way, but she also, I think she really tries to find a balance somehow. She still joined a political party that's still very far to the left, and
far to the left within the spectrum of Zionist politics, which is not very far to the left. Okay, I need to say this: it's not very far. It's not radical. It cannot be radical.
That's true, but compared to the norm, it is far to the left.
Yes. Okay.
So it's kind of this trying to navigate, having a bearable personal life in the conditions in which she was born, which is a very understandable thing to do, and it's certainly much harder for her than it is even for Israeli Jews to, I don't know, to try and oppose anything because she's already in a more disadvantaged position. So like most people, she just wants to have a good life. So,
Yes.
so the point is really not to shame and blame and say, but this is just to point out how systems work and the way systems benefit from the fact that people just want to live a nice, normal, comfortable life. Of course, we all want this. So, and we both participate in many ways with the system. I mean, after all, I am not homeless, you know, so the price to pay for completely not participating are so high. So everyone, you know, kind of chooses within it how much they participate and they try to navigate their way. So,
but we are still responsible for our choices.
But it's important to point it out and to realize
it's still a fact that we collaborate and we are responsible for our choices.
This is what reality is. And once you recognize it and you take responsibility for it, then you'll have more freedom, at least like spiritual freedom and I think kind of moral freedom also to be an activist and to try to not let your whole soul be overtaken by the system.
I think there's a few points that must be raised here. Okay, so let me do a spoiler alert. Okay, one of the things that will come up here is the subject of identity politics. So identity politics can mean two very different things. One of them is a deep, nuanced discussion that I'm not an expert on. We're not experts on this discussion, but we can say some interesting stuff from our experience with this discussion. And another thing is a very superficial way of conducting a political discussion only with regards to who the speaker is, what is the identity of the speaker, okay? And I think that the second one is very, very problematic and very, very damaging. It's actually a tool in the hands of the system to deepen the oppression, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's give a very extreme example. The extreme example is Youssef Haddad, okay? This guy is Palestinian. Mm-hmm. He's Palestinian. His name is Youssef, not Yosef, which many Israelis like to call him Yosef. His name is Youssef.
He probably doesn't correct them though when they make that mistake.
Yeah. And we all, if you don't know him, look up the things that he does. He is a very clear and unapologetic collaborator of the Zionist regime.
He's a very fierce activist. He's
a Zionist activist.
He's a very, very fierce pro-Israel activist going around and explaining the Israeli kind of narrative.
Basically. Yeah, he does Asbara.
Yes, he does. So this in and of itself is an extreme example, but this in and of itself goes to show that you can't just say, oh, if it's a Palestinian speaking, you have to automatically listen to their opinion because they're Palestinians and therefore they are right. Then the question is, but which Palestinian should we listen to? You know,
there are a lot of different
because
opinions.
Of their identity doesn't make them right. You'd still look at the merits of the content of what they're saying. So this is identity politics taken to some kind of absurd extreme that just merely by the fact that you are of a certain identity or have been assigned that, then everything that you say is completely valid and correct or something like this.
And why did I mention Youssef Haddad? Because the Zionists...
It's not the son of Hamas, but that's another example.
Another great example.
Yeah.
Okay?
Similar, yeah.
Because this kind of phenomenon is something that the system of oppression both creates and uses actively to maintain its power. If you talk to a Zionist, you will see that they say they love mentioning Youssef Haddad. They love it. They love
he's
tokenizing.
For them.
Yeah, he's a token. They love tokenizing this guy and using this guy as an example for why they are right. Even this Palestinian says that we are right. It gives them both the excuse for themselves and for the outside to say we are doing fine because even Palestinians are on our side. And I think that this is exactly what happens with collaborators who are less, less overt than Youssef Haddad, like the Hadash party. Okay, and I think that we really need to deconstruct this because I think that if we do not deconstruct this, if we do not understand how the system uses superficial and
exploitable.
What do you mean?
it's superficial and it's exploitable. If you
Yes.
go in this line of identity politics, then
Yes.
you can silence people, you can silence opinions, and you can warp the perception of people.
Yes.
Look, a Palestinian is saying it, so it must be true. So if a Palestinian is voicing message that serve the system, then at that moment, this is serving the system.
Yes. So the system uses this kind
Yes.
of simplistic identity politics for its own needs, and if we are not vigilant about this, we will not be able to effectively resist the system. And this is what I want to say on a more general note now. The entire exercise that we're doing now is to understand how the system works. This is the point.
Yes.
We want to understand how the system works.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
So continue with, you want to start by reading the
message. Let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me show you. Oh, Dusty is getting upset. Okay. I'm glad that I got you upset, Dusty. You are usually on our side. Dusty 48 is usually on our side, but now we got him upset. Wonderful. We said something that upset you, so now there's action. Now there's real stuff happening. Wonderful. We will answer. Don't worry. You're not upset. Okay, well, you're criticizing. It's really a problem that you don't see the difference between an Arab Zionist Hasbara worker and a leftist party member you don't like. You see, I think you are upset, Dusty. I think you are upset. Because it's not that I don't like anyone, and it's not that I don't see the difference. I see a difference. But the question is it a difference without a distinction? Okay, a distinction without a difference. It's a distinction, but maybe it's a distinction without a difference. Maybe there's difference here, but it's still in the same direction. I'm giving an example. Okay, I'm giving an example for how Palestinians can be collaborators, and now we can actually ask the question of whether a Palestinian person is a collaborator, because what they told me in this WhatsApp group, again, spoiler alert, is that Palestinians cannot be collaborators.
Yeah, so
this is basically what they told me.
Yusuf Haddad is just such a blatant example.
Yeah.
You can just throw this argument right out the window, because everyone in their right mind will agree that Yusuf Haddad is an example of a Zionist. So this is just an easy example. And then you can get into the field of, okay, so now we can ask the question, if someone is a Zionist, and that someone can be Jewish, can be Palestinian, they can be all kinds of things.
So let me read to you the notification for the karoz,
announcement.
The announcement of a protest organized by the Hadash party that was sent in this group. So this is the announcement. Okay, this is the announcement, and it says, "די למלחמה, stop the war. כן לשלום, yes to peace. No to war, yes to peace." Okay, this is what it says. A Palestinian state now. We're calling for a Palestinian state now. Okay, and the logo here is the Partnership of Peace. The Partnership of Peace. Okay. So already you see how much these messages are liberal Zionists. This is just the very classical and common messages of liberal Zionism, talking about peace and not about justice or equality, talking about a war and not a genocide. Okay, talking about a Palestinian state, which is talking about a Palestinian state is promoting the two-state solution, and not about one democratic state between the river and the sea. Okay? I have to inform you, Dusty is saying, that even if we one-staters may not like it, most Palestinians outside of Israel want a Palestinian state. Ergo, two-state solution. Okay, and why? Okay, let's analyze this. Why do most Palestinians want a Palestinian state and they want a two-state solution? I think it's very clear. It's because the Zionist regime made it very obvious that they will use anything in their power to not allow the dismantlement and the abolishment of the Zionist project
and the establishment of one democratic state between the river and the sea called Palestine in its stead. So a lot of Palestinians, no matter where they live, have accepted this fate. They say, okay, so the Zionist regime beat us, and now we just prefer a two-state solution, okay? Because we have no choice. Okay, we have
so
no
maybe
choice.
this is also maybe another point to kind of define Zionism. Do you define it as a mental, emotional state, or do you define it as a position within a system, and do your actions reflect participation with something? So, because I'm wondering this, for example, with these Palestinians that you talk about, if they are in favor of two-state solutions and maybe they participate, they cooperate with the Zionist system, and we can call them Zionists in those senses that they serve the system. The system says they don't form a danger to us. It's fine to have them. They can still fit within the system, and we can still keep Zionism alive this way. Then that would be calling them, I don't know, maybe cooperators or something with Zionism. But it does not mean that deep within their hearts, yes, the Jewish people have a right to a Jewish state, and I believe in this. That does not mean that that's what's in their hearts or minds. So I think maybe that's, in that way, they're different Zionists than Jewish Zionists, who actually, it is predicated on the sense of supremacy, and it is dedicated on the sense of we deserve the state and it's ours and the UN gave it to us. But it may be a pragmatic position.
Yes, it may be a pragmatic position. Yeah. It may be a pragmatic position, but maybe for some Palestinians, it's not a pragmatic position. It's something
so it's probably a whole spectrum there. And also I think that because they work also, I also at work, there's many Palestinians, and they work day in, day out with Israeli Jews, and it rubs off on you. It does rub off on you. I mean, I think a lot of them are maybe split because maybe at home they experience different things, or they see.
I just need to answer. I just need to answer Dusty's question directly. Not all Palestinians who support a two-state solution are Zionists. Some of them they have just been defeated by the Zionist regime to the point that they cannot even aspire anymore to one democratic state called Palestine between the river and the sea. Okay, so some of them, yeah. But some of them, they just gain material benefit from the existence of the Zionist project and from the existence of Israel. For example, if they are higher ups in a party that is part of the Israeli parliament, their livelihood, their basic livelihood, is dependent on the continued existence of the Zionist project. Like my family's livelihood and my friend's livelihood is in some way dependent on the continued existence of the Zionist project, which gives them a material encouragement to support the Zionist regime. And this also affects the way that their minds work. It affects their ideology, it affects their choice of rhetoric, it affects what choices they make, what political choices they make, what tactical choices they make, what strategic choices they make, and it affects how they treat those who are actually anti-Zionists. Okay, and this is where we get to the discussion.
Yes,
okay?
I think they're not completely. They're in this weird in between position. They're not completely and essentially and totally different from. Like you said, there are Israelis. It says Israel on their passport. So some people, if the Zionist regime is dismantled, which is this kind of idea, it's very hard to imagine what that would look like in practice, and we don't know also what would happen in practice, in what way this would happen, and what ways of violence or whatever exactly that would be executed. So I think for them, there's also a reason to be afraid or resistant to change, because they know what they have now. They know that they can live relatively comfortable lives, even though there may be a lot of.
If they keep their head down, their lives would be okay.
So it can be.
This is the hope. I don't think. By the way, I think that this is mistaken and misguided. I think that this is not true.
Yes.
I think that Palestinians who collaborate with the Zionist regime in this way out of desperation or a lack of hope or just hoping for the bare minimum, I think that this will come back to bite them in the ass.
Yes.
Okay? This is what I think. Okay,
Yes.
this is a discussion that needs to be had, a pragmatic and strategic and tactical discussion that needs to be had, but it needs to be had honestly. It doesn't need to be had in a way of, you know, calling someone this or this or this. It's a discussion that needs to be had honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. And everyone deals with this conflict differently. You know, some people are just, okay, let me just go with the societal norms and let's just keep my head down and this is my best bet. And yes, it's very understandable, but it's just something to point out and to recognize that that is in fact what is then happening, because their situation is still much better than the situations of Palestinians in Gaza, for example, who don't benefit in any way.
This is another point that needs to be made here, okay? There are competing interests between 48 Palestinians and Palestinians who live in the West Bank and Palestinians who live in Gaza. This is a direct result of the actions of the Zionist regime. Please do not
divide and conquer. I think it's even also a strategy. Yes.
The Zionist regime. Okay, let's go wider. Okay, let's go wider. There are around 15 million people living between the river and the sea. All of these people have, you know, different histories, different identities, different ethnic backgrounds, different all kinds of things. Okay, different religions, all kinds of things. But the deep and categorical separation between these groups was created, manufactured, and engineered by the Zionist regime to begin with. The Zionist regime is a regime that is based on separation and then control, okay? And one of the ways that it separates between people is to say there are Jews and there are non-Jews, Muslims, Christians, and so forth and so on. The other way is to say that there are Israelis and non-Israelis. And another way is to say there are 48 Palestinians, Palestinians who live in the West Bank and Palestinians who live in Gaza, and unity between those Palestinians is something that the Zionist regime really does not want, okay? But it is also just a material fact in reality that there are competing interests, you know, subjective personal interests to 48 Palestinians and to Palestinians living in Gaza.
Mm-hmm.
And Hadash party is promoting things that are damaging to Palestinians living in Gaza. Okay, for example, Muhammad, who was a guest on my podcast with Elik, the Yalla podcast with Elik, he was a guest on 2 episodes, and he believes deeply in the direction of one democratic state between the river and the sea for all its inhabitants. Okay. One democratic state where political identity is based not on ethnic background, but just, but yes, on species. Okay, but never mind. This is a different discussion that I have with him. By the way, I talk to him about this sometimes. But the point is that this is something that is not promoted by Hadash. There is a tension between the interests of Hadash party and the interests of the One Democratic State initiative. They have different political goals. They have different political goals. So they have a deep political disagreement, and we have to acknowledge this.
Yes. So as you tell the story and as you voice your viewpoints and the things that happened in the group, I think one thing to try and keep in mind is to imagine that a Palestinian from Gaza is also in that group. For example, Muhammad is also in that group. And how are the things that are being said experienced by him, and what is in his interest?
Okay, so what happened was that one of the participants in the group, who is Jewish but anti-Zionist, he criticized the messages of this protest, and he said that this was a protest that is collaborating with the Zionist regime, and that the messages are just repeating Zionist propaganda, which is, I think, just factually true. Just factually true. There might be explanations, tactical explanations for why this happened, but still it does not make it not true. And also, I think that that a lot of cases where radical or people who could have been radical collaborate with the system, when they look at it tactically, there's a good explanation for why they are doing. This is exactly the way that the system creates collaboration. They create incentives, okay, so that it is tactically better to collaborate with the system to a certain extent while you are actually trying to resist the system. And I think that we need to be very careful about this. I think that if we find ourselves collaborating with the system in some way, we need to ask ourselves, okay, why did we do this? Okay, so one answer that I was given later in this discussion is, listen, they had to soften the messages so that the police approves the protest. Okay? The police approved the protest. And this can sound very, okay, I didn't argue with this because it was an actual explanation as opposed to other things that were said to me in this discussion, okay? I didn't argue with this. I said, okay, I understand. You want to have a protest, the police has to approve it, so you have to soften the messages so that you can have the protest. Sure, but still, if we go deeply into this, what does it mean that the police approved the protest? It means that the protest has the seal of the Zionist regime on it. It means that the protest does not really bother the Zionist regime so much. At the very least, it means that. At the very least, it means that. And I think that if we think about it more seriously and more deeply, we can deduce that maybe this protest is actually serving the Zionist regime. Maybe this game of the right-wing people fighting with the left-wing people is exactly what the system wants to create. Maybe this is another case of what Noam Chomsky talked about, that if you want to eliminate political discussion, what you need to do is to define the limits of permissible opinions and allow very lively debate within those permissible opinions, but then outside the spectrum, not allow anything. Okay, and I think that this is exactly what's going on here. I think that this is the trick that a lot of people fall into. But why are you going against this? These people are on your side. No. I am against the system. I want to dismantle the system. Anything that serves the system is not part of my side. Okay, it's not. We need to be very vigilant about this.
So this is really the problem and the frustrating thing, that there's a lot of demonstrations and a demonstration that is
two cheeks of the same ass, as we say in my country.
Right.
Wonderful expression. The left and the right, two cheeks of the same ass.
Really, that's the expression.
Good expression to say. A very succinct way of saying what I say.
That the demonstration that is police approved is by definition within the system.
Mm-hmm.
It's not radical action. It's not disturbing anything, because you have it's a cordoned off area. You can stand there with some people. You can hold some signs that go over the border will be confiscated by the police.
Yeah, signs that go beyond what is permissible.
Which also
the permissible rhetoric.
Yes. But that's why it always feels so futile for me, and I think for many people have this experience. They go out on the streets to demonstrate because this is something that you can do, and then it's very frustrating to feel that it doesn't do anything. Yes, it doesn't do anything as long as it's something that is police approved. Police is literally one of the systems, one of the most oppressive arms of the system,
mm-hmm.
of keeping everything in check. And if they approve it and they allow you for 1 hour to say your message, they can keep up the veil of democracy, the veil of free speech,
the veil
of free speech, and say, hey, look, we're a democracy, you have free speech, and the people are empowered. This is, I think, to hide the facts that actually we don't have any power. They only give us the semblance of having power by saying words, but it doesn't actually do anything. So in that sense, I think it can be harmful if we are actually fooled into thinking that we're making a difference if we're doing these actions that are within the system. Of course, the very difficult thing is that how do you do something outside of the system? That's where you start risking going to jail, because that's the kind of the next station of how to keep things in check. If you go over the line, then they'll just jail you. But there's other ways and creative ways of thinking of how you go against the system. But I think
you can go and participate
really
in the.
recognize.
You can also go to a protest that is police approved and kind of do dissent and disturbance within this protest.
Provoke, like what you
and provoke. Okay, but this requires that you identify the point that we just made. If you don't understand what we just said, then there is no way that you can go to the protest and do trolling and provocations within the protest. You have to understand this first.
Yes.
Okay, and in my experience, the vast majority of leftist activists within the Zionist regime do not understand this point. They think that if they go to the protest and play the game with the police, because the police will play the game with you like this. They will start fighting with you, and then you will fight with the police, and then they will do arrests, and the dance continues. Okay, this is the dance. And people who dance this way with the police feel like they're doing something meaningful because, look, I got resistance from the police. But I think that this is, again, a trick that the system uses to make people think that they're doing something meaningful while just doing the same loop again and again and again and again and again, and it brings no meaningful change in my experience. Okay?
Yes. So go back to when the other person in the group criticized it and the reaction that he got.
So he got a very dismissive reaction. Okay, so he criticized the messages of the protest. He criticized the goal of protest, and he said that this protest was in some way participating and collaborating with the interests of the Zionist regime, and that it hurts the struggle for freedom of other groups who are more oppressed within the Zionist system, which I think is just a true statement. And what he got was a very, very dismissive response, insinuations. So she said, oh, this guy is very smart, but sometimes he says things that are so weird that I don't even know how he thought about them. Maybe in his twisted mind, it makes some weird sense, but like it's bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And then she said, the discussion continued. He said, some other people joined. I also joined, and I said, no, I agree with what he says. And then she said, oh, I don't have time and energy for these stupid discussions. Okay? And if I had any doubt about the Zionism of the speaker, I think that this kind of approach is very emblematic and representative of the approach of Zionists. This is just the way that Zionists act. The way that the Zionists act is is responding to people who criticize the system, from a truly radical perspective, saying, I'm an anti-Zionist and we should all be anti-Zionist and we should dismantle the system, reacting to these kind of messages in a completely dismissive way, framing those people, the people who express this criticism as crazy or stupid or naive or unserious or misguided or all kinds of things, to attacking their character instead of really, addressing the arguments, and then saying, oh, I don't have time for these things. I don't, in a very patronistic way. Okay? This is being patronizing is something that is very, very, very typical of Zionists when they respond to anti-Zionist arguments. This is something that is so classical. I saw this not just with Zionists, but also with Carnists all my life. I felt this again and again and again and again and again. It's something that is very typical to the behavior of those who are in power.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Those who are in power and those who are part of a
powerful system,
a majority opinion. So the context of this social environment is a leftist group where the majority opinion is in line with the Hadash party, is in line with this kind of more what they view as a more pragmatic approach. And so within that space, when someone criticizes that person is in a minority position, and the person speaking for the protest, also having in the group a more senior position, having a more kind of authoritarian position, because she's part of a political member and she's the one announcing this demonstration. And then the point that I want to emphasize here is that obviously the person who criticized this is a serious person, because this is a person who is in this protest group. So it's not a Zionist who is just trying to trip them up. It's not a troll.
In my experience, he's one of the most serious people.
Yes, he's not a troll or something.
No,
he's not trying.
Far from.
And he wrote something. I actually haven't read it, but I gathered that he wrote something like very constructive criticism, like content criticism, not criticizing the person, not saying anything, saying what he thinks about it and why he thinks it is still participating within the system. And so the reaction that he got they could have chosen to react in so many different ways. They could have said, yes, I see your point. However, we think the more pragmatic approach within this framework is to go along with this because, it's better to gain some than gain none at all. They could have said, I don't agree with you.
Yeah, but
they could have said many things that really...
If they said this, then I personally would disagree with this point, but I would acknowledge that there is a point to disagree with.
Exactly. Okay? You could have had a discussion and you could have had different thoughts about it, and you could maybe have a sit down one time that goes more in depth and explain each other's points. But the dismissive way that he was treated, I think that is really something that goes to show that something else is going on, that people are starting to kind of fall in line and protect something. And I think that is kind of a mark that you can recognize that what's going on is that the system is being activated against you, and something closes in on this person. They started all kind of attacking him.
Yes. I think that this is a very important point, because there are discussions, sometimes serious discussions, where actual points are being made and points are being responded to, and learning is a process of learning and development is happening and going deep and becoming more nuanced and learning from each other. This is something that sometimes happens, but in my experience, it's quite rare. Okay, what usually happens is that there is like the agreed upon opinion in this social group. So sometimes it's the social group called the Zionist cult, okay, the big Zionist cult. But sometimes it's a pocket of something, okay. So there's like the leftist pocket, which is inside the Zionist cult, okay, and the norms there are different, but I think they are still norms that serve the bigger system, okay. And what we are describing is criticism on those transparent norms and the way that those who serve the norms and follow the norms treat those who go against the norms. And this is when you see this kind of dismissive, this kind of answers which attack the person and not the content of what they said, this is a good sign that what's going on here is not a discussion, but the preservation of norms and the policing of a certain opinion that is not within, the correct opinions and the permissible opinions between which you can have a discussion, okay, inside this system.
So he actually had a radical challenge. The moment you are radically challenging something and not within the liberal framework, this is when you start getting the pushback.
Okay, maybe Tamar, you can answer some questions because I need to use the bathroom. Answer some questions from the audience. Keep the live going, and then we'll continue this discussion.
Okay. Let's see. Anyone has a question? I don't really see any questions. Anyone have a question? They all need saved. The minds of the Zios are occupied and the bodies of the Pels are occupied and deleted. Pretty terrible situation. Yes, so it's true that this really is the dilemma, that fighting the system or fighting for radical change is by definition going to put you in a very difficult position. It's really hard to think how you can really be radical going against the system, because if you go against the system, then you're going to be punished. You're going to be punished by the system by more physical, violent means, such as being jailed, or you're going to, first and foremost, being punished socially. And the story that Alon is going to continue telling is about the social punishing part. This is where the gatekeepers, way before the police has to step in and take action, this is where society, the societal environment makes sure that people stay in line. And this is something that anyone that has ever challenged systems in a radical way, I am sure everyone has experienced this, that once you step out of line, out of the realm of permissible opinions, you're going to start getting very aggressive reactions. And I didn't always know this. I only knew this when I started stepping out of line. And, I think I've done this in the past, many years ago, here and there, and now and then, in all these different kinds of ways. And then I experienced that, but I've really started experiencing it more and more lately as I've become more radical. And only then do you start understanding that we're not free at all. Then you start understanding just how much social control there is on it. It's something that you don't think exists if you don't challenge the systems, because then everything flows with you, and nothing actually you don't encounter that border. But Alon, I think, has encountered this in some way or another his entire life, and it's related to...
What is the question, though?
No, there wasn't really a question, but I was responding to a comment from someone that was saying the majority of democracies have limited options you can talk about. And so I started talking about the limits of free speech and the limits of what we're permitted to do. And that most of us do not know how not free we are, and we can be kind of shocked by it.
Yeah, when you don't go to the limit of what's permissible, you don't think that such a limit exists. You think
we live in a democracy. You think there's free speech, and you find out that it's just not true. As long as you say what the system finds permissible and acceptable to say, if you don't go too much outside of the realms, and if you want to...
But ironically, this is the deepest slavery to the system. This is the deepest, subjugation to the system, when you don't even try to challenge anything.
Why poor Alec? Doesn't matter.
Alec is fine. But I think someone here is being a homophobe, so we're going to remove them. Okay. How do I remove the user? How do I... Oh, put user in timeout. Okay, wonderful. Timeout, 30 minutes. Go think about your homophobic comments. Alec is fine. I think Alec is fine. Like, as fine as you can be when you're living in...
I am still working as a psychologist. Maybe we'll do another episode about that as
well.
The
challenges
of having chosen a very liberal profession and to navigate that when you're a radical. But I think...
a radical in a society that became completely fascistic.
So how I navigate that and how I try to maximize my freedom as much as possible there.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
So the topic is something that happened yesterday, and we'll go back to that now, which is...
the topic is how even those who are on the left side of the system can police those who are trying to express radical positions that go against the system in a radical way, that is, challenge the very existence of the system as something that should happen. Okay, like, for example, how people who still think that the state of Israel should exist police those who say that the state of Israel shouldn't exist. Okay, like I tried to say.
Yes.
Okay,
let's go back to the story. There's still quite a lot to tell.
Yes. So what happened was that because I felt this dismissive energy, because I saw this dismissive behavior, I commented on it. I expressed my criticism on the messages of this protest, like I said here. Okay, just the same points that I made here. But another thing that I talked about was the dismissive approach to the criticism. Okay,
And when I said this, I made the fatal mistake of saying that I'm used to getting this kind of treatment from liberal Zionists. This is the way that I phrased this. That I felt a dismissive approach from this Palestinian woman, and I said that I'm used to this dismissive approach from liberal Zionists. Okay, this was my fatal error, and from that point, from that moment, there was a campaign to silence me and to police me for saying something that is not permissible to say inside this WhatsApp group. Okay, let me make this clear. If someone disagreed with my insinuation or implication that this Palestinian woman is a Zionist, then no problem. Okay, you can say, no, she's not a Zionist. I disagree with you. Here is the reason for why she is not a Zionist. Okay, your comment is not true. Good. This is an actual discussion. But this is not what happened. What happened was outrage because I dared say this thing, okay? And a personal attack against me for being, again, naive, unaware of, political nuance, of being a privileged Jew.
I think this is the main point.
That I was a privileged Jew and a man. Okay, because
Yes.
I'm a man, because I'm Jewish, this is why I'm stupid. This is why I didn't understand. Okay, I'm unaware of what's going on, and I made this error, and I should be taught that this thing cannot happen. I cannot make this sin of claiming that someone is a Zionist if she is Palestinian. Okay, and this, I think, is just classical policing. Okay, you can disagree with my claim that she is a Zionist. That's fine. But there were no arguments being made for why my claim is wrong. There were arguments being made for why I shouldn't make this claim and for why I specifically shouldn't make this claim because of my identity. My identity was being used to say that I shouldn't make this claim and there was like judgment, like not please stop making this claim, but like there's something wrong with you for having dared to make this claim. This is the kind of thing that happened. Okay.
Yes, they were heavily implying, or maybe even outright saying, that you were speaking from a place of privilege. Therefore, you were speaking in an arrogant manner over the heads of the victims, which are the Palestinians.
Yes.
So there's two things to be said about that. First of all, that again, she's a Palestinian, but she does live in Israel. So she's also an Israeli.
She is a privileged woman.
Yes,
okay?
She has a dual identity. She's Israeli-Palestinian. So she's really very much on the fence of these identities.
I'm sure she lives in a nice house. I'm sure
Yes.
she makes a nice salary, paid for by the Zionist. Let me make this clear.
Yes,
okay?
but yeah.
No, she works in a political party in the Israeli parliament. This political party gets a lot of money from the state of Israel. Part of this money goes to her salary. Her salary is directly funded by the state of Israel. Let me make this very explicit, okay?
Yes. So this is related to the other point that I wanted to say, and this is really where the identity politics also comes in, is that, well, first I'll say just in parentheses, even though they deserve, kind of a place up on the front as well to say it, that everybody involved in this discussion was Jewish. Okay,
yes.
So there were no Palestinians talking that were telling Alon that he's talking over the heads of Palestinians, and themselves were Jewish, and they were debating with Alon.
It was an internal
Alon.
Jewish-Israeli discussion.
And they're saying that he's the privileged one speaking over the heads, and that we should listen to Palestinians, even though they themselves were obviously saying their opinions, which I think is fine. They have their opinions and they are who they are, but so is Alon. So to use that as an argument is pretty absurd.
Let's make this distinction, okay? The fact that they have a different opinion, okay, as Israeli Jews than my opinion as an Israeli Jew about what constitutes Zionism and who is a Zionist and who is a collaborator and who is not, that's fine.
But them using the fact that I'm an Israeli Jew to say that I cannot say that it is wrong for me to say what I said when they are themselves Israeli Jews is, I think, absolutely ridiculous and not part of an actual discussion. Okay, it's part of policing and not part of actual discussion. Using identity politics to police actual discussion.
Yes, yes. And maybe this is something we'll touch upon later as well. But one thing that identity politics is missing, I think, purposely, is that we all have many factors that make up how powerful or powerless we are in a certain situation.
Yes.
It's not an inherent characteristic that when I'm a woman, I'm always in a weaker position because I'm not a man. If I'm in a very female environment and there's one man, then sometimes it can be even the opposite, that the man is being silenced, or every word that he tries to utter, it's called mansplaining in kind of passive aggressive ways which do not merit the behavior of that person. And in the same way, I don't think a sound argument can be made that in all ways this woman who posted this protest is in a more privileged position than Alon. In some ways, Alon certainly is, because he was born, assigned Jewish as birth.
Yes,
so
yes.
Potentially you can have privilege. Potentially,
I do have privilege.
And
I acknowledge that I have
yes,
privilege.
but the
okay?
thing about it is to acknowledge this and to understand also that you could also live a much more privileged life than you do if you were to participate more with, for example, the capitalist system.
Yes.
And so the question is not do you have privilege or not, but how do you use that? And do you use it to completely exploit this to the max and just have a very nice and comfortable life and not care about the others? Or do you try to, as much as you can, try to be aware of it, to criticize it, and maybe even try not to participate in it, even though that has some very high personal costs to it? And this is the most that you can do. And
I don't think it's the most that I can do. I can do more, but it's what I choose to do. It's the amount of risk and the amount of damage that I'm willing to put myself in and to cause myself for the cause. And I don't know. I know that me going against the system of human supremacy, the system of Jewish supremacy called Zionism, the system of economic supremacy called capitalism, the system of gender supremacy called patriarchy, hurts me a lot. Okay, it hurts me a lot when I go against this all the time. I lost many friends throughout the years. I lost many social groups. I lost jobs. My family went against me many times.
I think, okay, so the other thing that I wanted to say is that that having a position of power is also very context bound.
Yes.
So within this group, the WhatsApp group, within this small social circle, other people have more power than Alon. For example, the admin, the managers of this group. For example, the people that are considered kind of the ringleaders in the group, the people that are respected because they have a societal position as,
and because they have a lot of experience
Yes.
in being in these political, groups,
Yes.
and they're
have
known
certain
activists.
Authority that's derived from that.
Yes.
And also just the sheer fact of numbers. What's the majority and what is the minority? So
Yes.
as this was going on, I'll say what my feeling was, kind of like from the side,
Yes.
is that Alon was being bullied. And I think that this, if you're the weak or the strong, is not an inherent characteristic. It is a position within a social dynamic. So Alon can be the strong one within one group and the weak one within another. And I think in this context, it's more accurate to say that Alon was in a weaker position. He was in a minority opinion. He holds no kind of status, has no control over who is in the group, who is not in the group, and he cannot. He's not trying also to put anything upon someone else or decide over him. And so this created a environment and a context within which a whole group of people separately were going against them, and they were voicing this majority opinion. And yes, I think this, for me, it felt like it amounted to.
And I think that this is what allowed people.
This is the same kind of dynamic of bullying, like a larger group or like several people going up against one person who's pretty much standing alone and has no social or concrete kind of position. to defend against that in that particular context.
Yes. And I think that this is what allowed the people in this group to speak to me in a very, very patronizing and dismissive way. This continued. Okay? This continued.
This is an expression of that.
Yes.
It kind of reflects your social position. If someone speaks to you in a condescending way, then that signals something about the situation that you are in. And this is something that you that we experience so much when we're voicing minority opinions within the within the circle that we're the minority. Then they can speak to us in a very condescending way and not even notice it. They think it's all being very equal and respectful because they don't even notice it. And I think this reminds me of the quote that people who are privileged experience equality as them being oppressed, as oppression.
Yes.
Like they think, for example, I have this other example, like if for work we're going to a certain restaurant, people think they're doing me a favor if I have some vegan options. I mean, I can have the quinoa salad maybe while I have to sit next to people who eat the corpses of my friends, and I have to say thank you for thinking of me just because I'm the minority. If everybody was vegan and there's only one person who participates in the animal holocaust, then of course we're going to a vegan restaurant, and this is what's going to happen, and it's obvious, and the person eating corpses would have no leg to stand on to argue otherwise. So this is a function of majority versus minority and power derived from that.
Yes, you have to say thank you for the murderers allowing you for not forcing you to participate in the murder actively.
And they think
thank you so much.
And they think this is equal, and so everyone has something to eat.
Yeah, now this is equality.
The fact is, and for just for a moment, even though I really don't want to do it, I'll put the lives of the animals to the side. Even if we only speak in terms of humans, the situation is then that everybody but me can choose everything from the menu, and I have only 1 or 2 items to choose from.
Yes.
And this is the situation. In their eyes, it's equal versus going to a vegan restaurant where everybody can choose everything like me. That is the actual equality, but they will experience that as, oh, now you're forcing me to not have choices or something like that. So this is the way that it's viewed, and this is only because of norms. This is only because of dynamics of minority versus majority.
And this again, as you said, without even considering the fact that there are actual non-human animal victims here, and this, this is the most ridiculous thing. Or I don't know. It's a very difficult. It's a big contest. Okay, what is the most ridiculous thing you ever heard from a carnist? And let's say top 5 is live and let live.
Yes.
Live and let live. What is the meaning of this? Don't bother me for me killing other animals.
Yes, exactly. I think this is equality.
They live and let kill. This is what they mean. Live and let kill.
Yes.
Okay.
And don't bother me. Don't remark about this while I'm doing this.
Don't comment about the fact that I don't raise the subject that I'm murdering your friends right now.
Yes.
Live and let live.
Yes.
Live and let live. This is amazing. Okay. So let's go back to the story of what happened in that WhatsApp group. So I think okay. I'm trying to recreate my mental state. I know that okay. So the people who were talking to me and being condescending and dismissive towards my position, to dismiss it, so that they don't, and they didn't give any actual arguments against my position.
It was all ad hominem.
Yeah, it was all ad hominem. Everything was that. There was one, as I mentioned before.
Oh, yeah, fine.
There was one actual argument being made. Someone said, "I was a small part of the organization of this protest, and I know that they made these concessions because they wanted to appease the police so that the police approves the messages of this protest." Okay, and to this. While I was arguing with a lot of people, to this I said, okay, good point. Okay, thank you for actually, answering. And I disagree with this, but okay. And if this was the only thing happening, actual discussion, I could have answered my opinion about this, and an interesting discussion could have happened. Okay, but because this one point was drowned out by a bunch of ad hominem arguments that didn't address what I said, This was drowned out, and the discussion did not happen. The actual discussion about what I actually tried to say did not happen. And I think that this is important because this was the goal. Okay, this is the goal of such policing. They attack you personally, and then you have to defend yourself against the attack. And now the discussion is about whether I am a privileged Jewish man, and not about whether the protest is actually in the benefit of the liberation of Palestine, Palestinians, or the dismantlement of Zionism, or equality, or justice, or peace, like they say. Okay, the discussion is no longer about the protest and whether this protest serves the goals that we proclaim to have, but about Alon and whether Alon is a privileged Jewish man, and whether he's crossed the line or didn't cross the line, and so forth and so on. Okay, and I think that this is the goal, because once we have this discussion, we might discover that the point that was being made was true in some sense. Okay, maybe it was true in some sense, but they really don't want to have this discussion. Okay, and this is why they use all these tricks and manipulations.
And also the silent reader will see all this unfolding, and they'll think twice to speak out. They'll get a very clear message of what is permissible and what will happen if he's like, maybe some people thought that they agree with what Alon said. I don't know.
In retrospect, there were a few people who did agree with what I said to certain extents, but they didn't speak up at that time.
Speak out, yes, because they see what kind of punishment you get for doing that.
Kira is asking, was it a standing together WhatsApp group? No, but I have my criticism on standing together as well. It was, by the way, it was a group that is 97% Israeli Jews. Okay.
And the protest that they were announcing is many different organizations kind of together. And one of those it wasn't just the Hadash protest.
Yes.
Standing Together was also one of the organizations that is going to be at the protest. Yes.
So let me try to organize my thoughts here. But what I wanted to say was that when the discussion started, those people who were attacking me on a personal basis were people that I appreciate to some extent. Okay, these are people who I don't know personally, okay, like IRL, but it's people who I read what they wrote in many different situations, and I appreciate them. I have some criticism on what they say sometimes. I appreciate what they say sometimes, but like in general, I was like, okay, these people are serious people, and it's very confusing because when they say these things that are like not real answers to what I said, I'm like, okay, maybe I need to listen. Maybe I am the problem here. Maybe I did do something problematic. This is what it causes you to think. And I remember I was in a very weak position that I was trying to like defend myself. And in retrospect, this wasn't the correct thing to do. I should have doubled down. I should have said, no, this is, of course, this is a Zionist protest. Of course, this Hadash is a Zionist party. Of course, anyone who is up in Hadash party is a Zionist. Of course, it's just.
Is this like
there's no doubt about it.
Yes.
They are servants of the Zionist system in a very, very concrete and material way. Okay, but then I went on the defensive because I was like, okay, people I appreciate are saying stuff to me. But this is another point that I think we need to understand, which is that once people are trying to defend some aspect of the system against the dissidents who are going against the system, their arguments are no longer good. Okay, it's no longer worth listening to, even if they're saying something that looks like something else that you know that has content and that is worth listening to. It's not that, because it's taking this and appropriating it and changing it and making it toxic, okay, and using it to silence criticism. It's not the real argument. This is the thing with identity politics, okay? Let's talk about identity politics, about the good part of identity politics, okay? Here is a short summary of how I think we should think about identity politics in a productive way, okay? In a very layered and divided society, a hierarchical society, where everyone is marked in a certain way, and this determines your place in society. And as politically aware as you are, sometimes your opinion is biased by your position within this system, which is tied up with your identity. Which is, by the way, exactly what we said about 48 Palestinians. Their identity is dual. One part is that they're Palestinians and their experience and their position is colored by this part of their identity. But another part of their identity is that they're Israeli. Okay, and this gives them another form of bias. Maybe they should look at that as well. Okay, and if you are a member of a certain political party, then this also affects this is also part of your identity, right? And this also affects your opinions. And this is the part of identity politics that I really agree with, that we should look at our position within the system and seriously and honestly consider in a reflective way how our position within the system affects our opinions, and whether we're talking from the place of our identity or we're talking from a place that is actually, constructive and true. Okay.
And so this connects to the point that I said earlier, that as long as I was apolitical, or as long as I went with the system, I, as a privileged person, was able to pretend, or to be blind to be unaware of the fact that I'm not free and that others are not free. So then I can actually live in this world thinking that everything is basically okay. Sure, there's problems, but everything is basically okay. And there's no need to be involved in politics, and I can just go on living my life. Someone who is in a less privileged position does not have this privilege, does not have the actual factual possibility of doing that. If you are oppressed, you cannot go around saying, I'm apolitical. If you are
your very existence is
if you are
inherently political.
Chicken spending your entire life in a cage, you cannot maintain, life is good. Yeah, what's the problem? Go ahead, live and let live. Everything is fine. You cannot. So this is the part of privilege. This is very important to be aware of, that if you are privileged, you should be aware of the fact that you're probably going to have blind spots, and you should try and become aware of how other people that are in not only less privileged positions, but outright conditions of oppression, how the systems work for them. And this is, for example, what's before the 7th of October, how Israelis think, and for large parts, I was also part of this. So like, okay, there's a conflict, but it's pretty mild right now. Things are pretty calm right now. And I did,
for you it was calm.
Exactly.
For Palestinians being murdered and oppressed, it wasn't calm.
We had peace, there was peace to Israelis, but the people in Gaza, of course, never did. And so this is only a function of being privileged. I mean, people living in Gaza, to them, it's not even an argument. It's their reality. They know oppression was there and violence was there all the time. So this is why it is important to realize that when you have a privileged position in society, that you may very well be blind and therefore participating in the oppression of others.
Yes. And this is a very good aspect of identity politics. There are many other aspects of identity politics, but at least in this respect, it's very important to understand identity politics. Okay, but this is not the way that identity politics was used in this situation. Right. Identity politics was used in this situation to say, you are from this identity, and you are criticizing someone from another identity. This identity is oppressed. You are privileged, so shut the fuck up. And the reason that they wanted me to shut the fuck up was not because of my identity, but because of what I was saying. Okay, if there are almost no Palestinians in this group, definitely not Palestinians who live in the West Bank, and definitely not Palestinians who live in Gaza. Okay, none of them are in this group. Okay, very convenient, extremely convenient. This group is 95% Jewish Israelis, 5% 48 Palestinians, and 0 Palestinians from the West Bank, and 0 Palestinians from Gaza. Okay, very convenient. But if a Palestinian had expressed this position, they would use some other argument to silence them. I don't know what. I don't know. But I know that they would. I know that they would.
Because of the majority that's in this group.
Yes. But no, because this is, the group is about this. So after the fact, I talked to some people who are more aware of what this group is about, because, I'm part of this group. I get information from it. I exchange ideas. I'm not, so involved in this, clique.
Mm-hmm.
And now I don't want to be involved in this clique, okay? Because I see what it's about. But in retrospect, I see that the people who were, who were very present in this discussion and speaking to me in a condescending way, this was from a certain political position, okay? They are members of a certain movement called Ibna al-Balad, okay? The children of the land, okay? So I'm not super aware. I'm not such an expert. Okay, I just heard about this yesterday as a result of this discussion. But I will say what I understood. What I understood is that their position is that the way to liberate us from the colonial regime is to strengthen the Palestinian national movement, okay, and create unity within the Palestinian national movement, which will resist the colonial rule of the land of Palestine, and thus liberate the Palestinian people from the colonial rule of Zionism. Okay? To be perfectly honest, I disagree completely with this position. As an anarchist, I am against national movements. I can very much sympathize with why Palestinians who live under oppression of the Zionist regime develop national feelings. I think it's a very different kind of national feeling from the national feeling of the colonizers of the Zionists, okay? And I can sympathize with why this happens, and I can understand, and I'm not judging or saying that someone is a bad person because they develop these national feelings and ideologies. But I can still recognize this is something that is counterproductive, in my opinion. Okay?
Because it's again divisive. It's against something that separates.
Yes, it's
rather than tries to.
It's a national movement.
Break down
It's a
divisions.
national movement. It's a national movement. I think it's counterproductive to liberation. I think national movements are counterproductive to liberation. This is a part of me being an anarchist. Okay, like I can have the discussion about this. Okay, and if we had an actual honest discussion where they actually said their position, then we could have had a true discussion about whether this is a good idea to strengthen the Palestinian national movement in order to liberate the Palestinian people from the control of Zionism. And I would have expressed my opinion, and they would have expressed their opinion, and maybe other people would have expressed their opinions, and we could have had an honest discussion about this. But this is not what happened. This is not what happened. And this is why I think that this is such a toxic thing, okay? Because it prevents actual discussion about the actual ways of achieving actual political goals. Okay?
Yes, and I think maybe in a way, I'm trying to think what is the distinction, is that how people relate to states is that it can be used as a tool, and this is also the way that you see it, as a tool to have self-determination, which includes freedom, which includes equality, which includes space to live your life the way that you want to live your life, and have security and have the means for a living, versus a state being the goal in itself. And I think it's the same thing with rights. When we talk about having rights, it's not that there's such a thing in the world that's
there's no physical thing called the right.
Oh, this is a right. There's no such thing. It's something. It's a word that we made up. It's a concept that we made up. And then we use this concept because we want to strive to an actual physical reality in which people are, which includes non-human animal people as well, where all these people and individuals have freedom and have equality and can live their lives the way that they want to live their lives without oppressing others or without limiting the freedom of others. And that is the goal. And one way to try to reach that goal is talking about rights. You know, but it's not okay. This is the goal in and of itself, to have rights. I mean, this is just a tool. And I think states, in this sense, are the same way. So maybe you can have an apparatus that can, in certain more efficient ways than everybody fending for themselves, organize society in a certain way that can be beneficial to all. But once it stops being beneficial to all, and once it starts discriminating against some and oppressing some and privileging others, then it's become a negative thing. And maybe we can organize society in different ways where there is no state at all, or a state that is very different than in its current form.
Yes.
So is this kind of what you're saying, that these people are too focused on the statist idea of this is a good thing, and they may just replace a Zionist state, or in their mind, like they want to.
This is one of the things that I could have said in an actual discussion.
Yes, you could have found out, and you could have talked about it.
I could have understood their position. I do not understand their position better now, because they did not express their position. I had to deduce their position from reading between the lines of why they were policing. The thing is that for them, this kind of this position that we have to keep unity within the Palestinian population of Israel, between the river and the sea. But I think they actually, I don't know what they believe. This is the thing. I had a discussion with them, and I don't know what they believe, because they didn't express what they believe. I expressed what I believe, and they didn't. Okay, they said shut up.
Yes.
Okay, in all kinds of manipulative ways. Okay, but I don't know what their position is. But they could have expressed their position, what they want. I understand that they want unity between the Palestinian people. Okay, but why? And why do you think that this will help? And then we'll have a discussion about why this is good, why this will help. But to them, this goal of unity between the Palestinian people, this sacred goal of unity between the Palestinian people, is something that cannot be challenged. Okay, they do not want to have this discussion. They do not want to have this discussion. I am willing to have any discussion. I am willing to have a discussion about why anarchy, why total liberation, why veganarchy equals total liberation, is the correct political position in our situation and in general. I would love to do it. I would be happy to do it if I get a chance. I want to defend my positions. I want to explain my positions. I want people to have the discussion with me. This is why we're doing this. This is what we're doing now. We're having the discussion. I'm trying to have a discussion in as honest way as possible. But this is not what they were trying to do. They were trying to defend their position as something that is not up for debate, not up for discussion in this space. And it's not like this is a space that was, proclaimed to be, this is the space for Ibn al-Balad. This is not. This was called a leftist space, just a general leftist space. Okay. So they did not allow the discussion, and they wanted to kill the discussion, and they did this in manipulative ways. At some point, when this discussion was going on for, let's say, 2 hours, I felt like, I was being attacked, but I was like, okay, I can handle it. I can handle it. And I felt like I did handle it. I felt like I managed to express my position enough to not get too upset and to not upset too many people too much. I was like, I tried to deconstruct the personal attack that happened on me and express my position. And I was like, okay. I told Tamar, okay, I think I'm good. I think I'm good. I literally told you this, right? I was like, yes, I got it.
Yes.
And then at that point, and I think this is again a very classical thing that happens. Another person joined the discussion, and this person is, I wouldn't say like a close friend, but a friend. Okay, and she dropped a message when things were looking up. Okay, I was like, okay, I got this. She dropped a message, and the message said, I will translate to English. Alon, pull yourself together.
you don't understand what you're doing. Okay, something like that. קח את עצמך בידיים. Pull yourself together. And I know this person, and I know what she meant, and I felt that this message was very, very condescending, very, very dismissive.
It was.
Okay, I felt it, and you also felt it. Okay,
Yes.
and I think it's just the fact that it was. It's very obvious that it was.
Someone tells you, pull yourself
Yeah,
together.
pull yourself together. Pull yourself together.
Yeah, it puts it in a very different realm. It puts it in a realm not of having an actual content-based discussion, but rather someone just kind of acting out, or someone not being able to contain themselves, or some kind of
Yes.
alluding to some kind of selfish behavior.
It was literally patronizing in the
Yes.
sense that it was treating me like a
child.
child
Yeah.
who's misbehaving.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
And in retrospect, this was definitely the attitude from the beginning to the end. Okay, of this specific person. I think
Yes.
of a lot of people in this
And it
discussion.
can really be translated to stop trying to challenge the norms here. Get in line. Try to make sure that you go back in line with the norms of
Yes.
this social space that we have here. Don't be a dissident.
Yes. And someone asked in the chat, like probably an hour ago, do you have any tips for how to deal with such attitude in political discussions, with dismissive attitude? Let me see if I can find the exact phrasing of the question. Let me see. Oh, it was a long time ago. But
maybe you remember the general.
Yeah, the general vibe was how do you keep yourself calm and collected in such situations?
Yeah.
And my honest answer is I don't know. It's really difficult. Okay.
So one way is to recognize what is happening.
Yes.
To be able to name it. Okay, this is right now policing. They're trying to silence me, and this is one of the tactics that being used. Being dismissive is one of the tactics of the system that is at that moment using an agent, and that agent is the person that I'm talking to right now. And this is what is now making them behave in certain ways. And this, if you understand this, it can maybe somehow kind of take away some of that pressure of feeling and taking it personally. But
still, it's also really hard to recognize. Okay?
It's hard to recognize, and it's still hard to deal with it, even if you know it. And it's so frustrating because you cannot communicate it to the other person because you're firmly within the system.
If you point it out, then now you're crazy. You get gaslighting. Okay, this is not what they say.
There's so little that you can do, and this is exactly why we're talking about who is in a position of power and who is in a more weaker position.
And I think that my honest answer to this question is that it's really hard. Okay, it's really hard, and this is why we want to talk about it, because this is the point that once you challenge social norms within a certain group, you will get attacked in many different ways. Okay, and the system that you are now challenging, the system of control that you are now challenging, will use every single trick in the book, every single manipulation tactic that it can to hurt you and to silence you. And one of the things that happens is that they treat you in a condescending way, in a dismissive way, they insult you, they insinuate, and blah, 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 blah. And all of this just happens, and no one acknowledges this because it's like under the surface. No one acknowledges this, and you can't get any acknowledgement for this. And whenever you do something that's like 1% of this, you get called out on it. This is what started it. I said that this Palestinian woman was a Zionist, and then it's like, oh my God, you used the curse word, like this. Everyone goes like, like this. Okay? Every time you make a small mistake in their book, they will attack you ruthlessly for it. But the fact that they are now attacking you is like completely transparent. Okay, and this is the position of weakness. There is a position of weakness in going against the norms in this respect. And this is why most people choose to go for the norms, with the norms, because it's more convenient.
And it's very difficult to undergo, to deal with this, and to undergo this, and to have this feeling of most people being against you, especially within a group that you do want to be a part of, because there's so few people that even call themselves left, or that will even organize around these protests that are considered left or that are speaking up against what's going on in Gaza. So a lot of people, I think, are also willing to kind of compromise. And again, it's very understandable.
Yeah, everyone is against us. I found some people who are with me, so I don't want to lose. You get very. This is something that's really frightening, to lose the support of this group, which is exactly what I felt when I went against the norm.
And people so desperately need this kind of social environment and acceptance that even when they go outside the norm, which already kind of does point to the fact that they are a certain, I guess, different type of people that are able to do it to some extent, but then most of them will, within their reference group, again align themselves with those kind of local norms there.
Okay, so the way that so one of the things that the system uses to enforce the norms is that it uses your friends against you. Okay, when you have a friend who is suddenly going against you, so it's one thing that people that I appreciate, their political opinions and their political activism, are suddenly going against me and trying to educate me on why I committed an unforgivable sin. This is one thing, it's difficult enough. But another thing that is even more difficult is when a friend, someone who I consider a friend, is suddenly saying something really, really patronizing and hurtful towards me. Okay? And this is where I made a big mistake. Okay? I made a big mistake. What I did was I sent this friend a WhatsApp message. It was 15 minutes long. 15 seconds. Sorry, 15 seconds long.
Very short. Yeah.
Yes, and this 15-second message contained the following content. Please don't speak to me in this way. Who do you think you are? Stop speaking to me like this. Stop speaking to me like this. Okay? But to be honest, I did not say it in this calm voice. I raised my voice. Okay? I raised my voice like 2 or 3 decibels above the normal volume of my voice, which admittedly is quite high. Okay, I speak in a loud voice to begin with, and I raise my voice like 30% above my normal voice, like 30%, right?
It's hard to.
I don't know
percentage. I mean, what's 100%?
Whatever. Okay, I raised my voice to a certain extent because I was hurt. Okay, to be honest, I was hurt by the behavior of this person who I consider to be a friend. Okay, so I raised my voice and I sent her a 15-second message where I said, please don't speak to me in this way. Who do you think you are? Don't speak to me like this.
Yes, that's like the exact thing you said. Yeah.
And the next thing that happened, Tamar, you want to tell the next thing that happened, because it's difficult. It's difficult for me.
So the next thing that happened is that Alon got a private message from this friend in which she also recorded a message in which she said something along the lines of, I am going to block you now.
Yes.
I will not have anyone speak to me in that way.
Or shout at me.
Shout at me like that. I was just trying to help you. I was trying to protect you against yourself.
Yes, I was trying to protect yourself from yourself. This is the exact quote.
Yes, yourself from yourself. And what else did she say? She said something like...
She said, I'm blocking you.
Yes.
And then she said, how you are digging a hole for yourself, a deeper and deeper hole for yourself. How dare you accuse a woman who is a more experienced activist for peace
and a better
than you,
and a better activist than you,
a more serious activist for peace, a more serious peace activist. I'm not. I admit that she is a better peace activist than me, because I am not a peace activist. I am.
So she's infinitely better.
Infinitely better at being a peace activist than me, because I'm categorically not a peace activist. I'm an activist for liberation and justice for all living beings.
Yes.
I am not a fucking peace activist. And to be honest, I despise peace activists. I think peace activists are activists for oppression.
I think if you are a peace activist, you are part of the system and you are part of oppression. Okay? This is what I think. No matter if you're Palestinian or Jewish or Buddhist, I don't care what you are.
Yes.
If you are a fucking peace activist,
Negative peace, yeah.
then you support. This is the quote that I put in my original message. I put the quote of Martin Luther King talking about the difference between negative peace, which is the absence of tension, and positive peace, which is the presence of justice. This is the quote that I love very much, okay? Because I think that it puts an emphasis on what kind of peace activists are striving for, okay? So fuck peace activists, okay? Fuck them. Okay.
So
she said, a more experienced and better peace activist than you, who is older than you,
playing the ageism card.
Yes, and the age card
this
was
was
being
something
played.
we should talk about sometime.
Yeah.
Ageism, and oftentimes talked about, which is also very true, is belittling people that are older, but it's also belittling children and thinking that just by the fact that someone has a higher age, they have authority over people who has less years.
It is my experience. That children are much better people than adults.
So yeah, but that's another topic for another day.
On a statistical,
which is kind of another kind of hierarchy that is very, very, very widely accepted in society, that someone who is a senior over someone else has.
But let's press this point, because this ageism card was being played in a subtle way throughout this discussion. Okay,
yes.
The people who were writing to me were older than me and more experienced in their kind of political activism than I. Okay. And this allowed them to be patronizing to me in another way. They were insinuating and implying that I was a naive child who doesn't understand anything, and they are the experienced adults, the serious adults in this situation, and they need to educate the child who doesn't understand anything. So the things that were under the surface before were now above the surface when this so-called friend sent me this message. She said explicitly she is older than you,
and then
respect
she
your elders.
Exactly. And then she emphasized that she's Palestinian.
Yes, and the last thing that she said, and she's Palestinian, with like this outrage. How dare you speak to a Palestinian in this way?
Yeah, which I think is kind of like a very racist thing to relate to a Palestinian like that, like you're relating to her differently, and this is something that I think is very condescending. So this whole message, the whole emotion that I heard in it was feigned outrage.
Yes,
righteousness and condescension, and just like it's really
and trying to put me back in line for my own sake.
Very kind of like very obviously aggressive as well, and just the active blocking as well. But then, and this to me is the part that enrages me. This enrages me.
So the next thing that she did, this was 2 seconds after. It took 2 seconds. She wrote. So she blocked me. And then she wrote in the main WhatsApp group. It turns out that even after someone blocks you on WhatsApp, you can see their messages in groups that you are both part of.
Yeah, I did not know this.
I didn't know this, but apparently this is true. So she wrote in that group, she wrote, Alon just sent me a violent, threatening message where he shouted at me. Like this, right? This is what she said.
And I'm still shaking.
I cannot contain this experience. This evil man shouted at me, and I don't know. She was expecting the group to do something about it. And then another woman who was not part of the discussion.
And let me just say one word about this, because shouting is not the right descriptive term. I think it was somewhere in between raising your voice and yelling. This is how I would kind of I don't know how you can be objective about it, but I think it's it is an
We
important-
listened to this message like 57 times since then. Okay.
Yes, because the content obviously was not aggressive. It was very, on point.
It was literally setting boundaries. Just don't speak to me in this
So the
way.
only thing
Don't
that
speak to me in this
she
way.
called violent was the volume. So this is why I think it's important for me also to say, to just give another opinion on it, is that it's shouting, certainly not. Yelling, I think it's exaggerated to say, but it was definitely recorded in a very kind of upset. I think,
yes, I was upset.
I think it was very clear that Alon was upset.
Yes. I was upset. This is a fact. I can report this fact. I was upset because she spoke to me in this way, and I reacted from a place of being upset.
Yes.
And this is the thing, that you will get pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed, and then when you push back a little bit and you're fed up with this, so you push back in a slightly aggressive way now. And I want you to please see how all of this is just a reflection of what is happening between the Zionist regime and Palestinian resistance. Okay, please see how it's the same thing, only in a very large scale or in a very small scale. I think this is why it's very important to understand these mechanisms, okay? Because they operate on all scales and in all situations. To anyone who goes against the system, Palestinians have been eating shit from Zionists and the Zionist system for decades and decades and decades and decades. And every time Palestinian, and they have to, keep it inside because they know that if they resist the oppression, then they might get even more fucked, okay? And then when all of this tension boils up and explodes, then they are punished even more heavily for how it exploded. But it's all the fault of the system that is policing and that is not allowing free discussion, free, relationships between different subjects. Okay, this is the result of this, and the result, me raising my voice slightly, was the result of me feeling a lot of tension and me being hurt personally by a personal friend who I thought was supposedly on my side. Okay, and then I was heavily punished for it, because then they had the opportunity to frame me as, an aggressive, violent man. And then another woman joined this discussion and said, yes, because she put the messages in the group. And another woman...
No, I thought you put the messages.
Oh, I put the messages in.
Yes.
She was about to send the messages, and I sent the messages to... I have nothing to hide.
She was about to send it?
Yes, she said, I will send you the messages. And then I was like, no, I'm sending the messages because I have nothing to hide.
Yes.
But this was another mistake.
So also to show that she was lying, that there was no threat in that message.
Yeah, but then another woman joined and she said, yes, and this is very violent, and you know what? This is another case of this group not taking care of violent men being I don't know. Controlling towards and like
they're controlling behavior in the group or something like this.
Yeah.
And I don't know how many people, but there were several people that joined her, and there was some people, one person I think that said, no, I don't think that was a violent message.
Yes.
And was like on your side.
Yes.
And
I must say that at this point I kind of lost it, okay, because I was feeling like, it makes you feel so like what can I do now?
Yes.
What can I do now?
So what basically happened is that this woman, what she chose to do is to bring Alon into the group. Like she shared this with the group, like, look what he did to me. Is basically, for me, it was very reminiscent of something to do back in high school or middle school or whatever, where one person is starting to incite the entire classroom against one person in order to boycott them, in order to push them out of the group.
Yes.
And this is
in Hebrew, cherem. How do you say?
Yeah, I don't know.
How do you say? Cherem b'Anglit. Like there's a term for this. Yeah, boycott, but it's not.
But it's not that. Yes, embargo. No, it's not that. It's
when all the popular kids in
like
the class
communicate. It's like they organize.
Excommunication. Yeah,
yes, she like organized so that Alon would be excommunicated from the group, would be ostracized from the group. And I think this is one of the really worst forms of
social punishment.
That
physical punishment is worse, but
yes.
but if you talk about social and emotional punishment, this is like the worst.
And this is something that when people can suffer from this, obviously years and years later, they'll come to therapy and they'll talk about this, that they experienced this in school when they were ostracized, that some person was inciting the entire school, the entire class against them, and everyone was now bullying them and making them their targets, their focus.
Yes.
And this is a horrible social punishment. And this really enraged me, because this is what she chose to do. First and foremost, I didn't believe for a minute that she was actually that shaken, and because
she was saying, my hands are shaking. My hands are shaking.
Yeah, like she's scared and she's playing the woman, the female card.
To be honest, my hands were actually shaking at that point.
Yes, and I was also shaking, just from the utter shock of that she would do that.
Yes, I was shocked. I was shocked.
And then using her womanhood in this manipulative and cynical way to kind of play the victim. To completely play the victim.
Yes.
And
like Zionists always play the victim, by the way.
Yes.
Zionists are bullies who always play the victim.
Yes.
And this woman was a bully who played the victim.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And she had a whole array of possibilities at this point. And what she chose to do is bring this into the group publicly in order to have everyone on her side and be against Alon. And this is also part of the kind of the more aggressive way of silencing. And I'm sure that this, for her personally, was something that was derived from the fact that she felt bad. And I think she probably felt guilty in some way of what she had done, because Alon, what he did, and this is probably took her by surprise, that he actually confronted her with her actions. Like, don't talk to me like that. And then I think part of her inner self had to recognize that she was talking to him in a horrible way and basically kind of put a knife into his back.
Let's just say, if she actually cared about me, if she actually was trying to help me, like she claimed, she could have very easily sent me a private message.
This is exactly what I said. Yes.
Where she
She would have said, if she really truly wanted to help Alon, she could have sent him a private message in which she could have also used a different terminology rather than pull yourself together. She would have said, look, Alon, I don't think it's so smart what you're doing, and I'm afraid that you're going to get hurt, and whatever. Say it in a less condescending way than you did. But the main thing is, don't say it in the group, because if in the group you make a social statement.
Saying someone is gay is not homophobic. Yes. Oh, Jesus Christ. Elik is not gay. This is just a fact that he's not gay. And talking about someone's sexual orientation in a way that is dismissive and ignorant is definitely homophobic. And now you're banned from the channel.
But why did he say it, though? Did he think that he was gay?
I don't know. I just saw it and I felt it was very obvious that this was a homophobic remark. Stop gaslighting.
So, okay, where was I?
Yeah, I'm sorry. This really upset me.
Mm-hmm. So the course of action that she chose was obviously conscious. And this was also part of the system operating her, I believe. But, on a personal level, it's just really, truly outrageous that in this way she was part of it. But, but that's the way that it works. That's how it works. And then she was actually the main agent in the
really escalating this.
That Alon was being ostracized and was being turned into the bad guy, and now they had another reason. They had another actual tangible reason for why he's the bad guy. So now they don't have to talk about the content of his criticism at all, and they can only talk about violent men. And without, it was not violent what Alon said, of course, but also ignoring the actual violent acts that this woman did by trying to publicly shame Alon and make him the target of this group. I think this is kind of behavior
already in a precarious situation. I was already in a precarious situation. And
this was the first. I think she really hurt you twice, and she really stabbed you in the back twice. The first time by writing this message publicly in the group, pull yourself together, rather than being a friend and
piling on.
Yes, and actually in like the most dismissive way of everyone in that group. I think nobody spoke to you just quite like that.
Yeah,
pull
it was
yourself
the worst.
together.
It was the worst.
Yes, and then after, Alon obviously reacts to that by being upset and sending her a private message, not in public. Then she takes this public to double down on it, and I felt that she was doubling down because she probably had some shame or guilt or something that she quickly wanted to dismiss, and then she wanted to get the confirmation of the group that she is okay and that she is not to blame. And she knew that this was probably the kind of environment in which she would get the support, because in terms of the political opinions, people were already on her side. And you could already tell that there is a very toxic variety of identity politics going on. So surely they could jump on this bandwagon of you her female identity and your male identity as well.
Let's talk about the identity politics here again. Okay.
Yes. In terms of the gender thing, you mean?
Yeah. You said you had something to. You had a lot of thoughts about this, right? About how she used this.
Yes, because afterwards she was saying, and they were trying to explain this to you as if you don't understand. Imagine that you're walking down in a dark alley, just to kind of try to communicate to you what it's like to be a woman in this violent world. And so then her explanation, obviously she tried to explain later why she was scared, and there was no explanation other than I'm a woman, and I'm a man. And you're a man, so therefore you don't understand what it's like to be a woman in this world. And when a man screams at me like this, then it triggers. Just use the word, I was triggered.
Yes.
And this is another pet peeve of me, especially as a therapist, as a psychologist, but also just like I think as a person, that trigger is an actual very serious thing. That people with PTSD, they can have certain triggers, and this is sometimes the reason they don't even leave their house, because they're so afraid of triggers. There's triggers that are actually very similar to a very traumatic event that they experienced in their lives, and then this trigger reminds them of this. And it brings them into very, very, very dark places, very extreme anxiety, a very debilitating avoidance behavior and such. And this word trigger has become such a kind of a buzzword that everyone's been using. Whenever someone does something that is slightly unpleasant or insulting to someone, it becomes a trigger. And I think this word has been weaponized beyond nausea, and
like all psychological terms.
Yes, because like many psychological terms.
Like setting boundaries, for example.
They've been distorted and they're being weaponized, and this is what she was doing. And she's mixing in a very kind of distorted version of feminism with this, because I can say as a woman that if I were to get a message from a person that is a man in this manner, it would definitely not be any kind of trigger for me just because I'm a woman. And this does not mean that I'm going to walk into a dark alley by myself. And this is because of the fact that what is the basis of this importance of being conscious of the difference between men and women, if we stay in this kind of this spectrum of male, female, and putting aside the fact that there's more genders than that as well.
Yes. More sexes and more genders.
Yes, more sexes and more genders, but like I'm staying for now in this division of male-female, is that men are stronger than women, and this is something that is true, and this is something that can put a woman in a precarious situation. And whenever she's in a physical space together with a man, this is something that is at that moment present, and there is maybe an element of feeling threatened that is I don't know always, but often present. And there's always, as a woman, you always have to be able to trust a man to a certain level because you are weaker physically.
Yes.
So this is true when you're in a physical space with a man. When you're at home and you're getting a WhatsApp message, this variable is not relevant. There is no reason why I should be more rattled getting a message from a male man versus from a woman, because at that moment he is no physical threat to me, nor do I think that person is going to come to my house to beat me up. And even if that's the case, then a woman can also just send a man to my house to beat me up. So it doesn't matter. It's not a relevant variable. So it's bullshit. Okay, so this is just what it is. It was just bullshit what she's saying.
No, I love how you explain, and then the bottom line. So it's bullshit.
Yes, and yes, it's just something that she's using. So has she, in the meanwhile, convinced herself that she was actually scared? Very possible. People lie to themselves all the time, and it's not necessarily, maybe she had to.
Zionists truly believe that they are the victim in what's going on in the last 2 years or even 75 years. Zionists are truly convinced that they are the victim.
Yes,
Okay?
and you have to
Even
solve
when
this.
they're perpetrating a genocide. Okay?
Exactly, and this is one of the mechanisms used to solve the cognitive dissonance that is very unpleasant to a person of doing something bad. So they have to make up quickly this story of why actually they are the victim, and this is what I 100% believe happened here, and what she did. And then what she chose to do with that is to use these feelings that she had, to use the group against Alon and hurting Alon in the process, to make herself feel better.
And you had another comment about like how feminism is being weaponized and what it does to the actual
Yes.
feminist movement, right?
This is the other reason that it makes me very angry, because by misusing it in this way, by using it in this wrong way, there is another kind of counter movement coming from men who experience this kind of thing that Alon experienced here, and they may come to the wrong conclusion. They may start saying, yes, they say men are strong and have all the power, but actually women have all the power, and they'll do this inversion. And because of cases like this that actually exist, and I believe that in this case, Alon was in the weaker position because he was a man, because this was being weaponized against him. So
Yes.
This is actually the case that now, no matter what you say, you'll only prove their point. See your violence, see your gaslighting, see your dismissing. It's a no-win situation. So she made this into an actual real-life situations in which women have more power in this particular context, in this particular social group. This is the reality that she created. And then there's people that are going to take this into the wrong, misguided direction of, see, women have all the power, and then they become very toxic towards women. So I think any time that you exploit something that is really important and an important message, you harm this movement. You harm the very important points that there are to be said, and that there are to be aware of how women are oftentimes in a weaker position where it is true. So it's kind of the same way in which not just feminists, but everybody after the 7th of October was talking about how there's all these multiple rapes that were being done by Hamas of women on the 7th of October. And
you said Hamas. That's a Zionist term.
What do you mean? What should I say?
You said Hamas.
Oh, right, and Hamas.
You should say Hamas.
Hamas, right?
Hamas.
Yes, I didn't say the Hamas at least.
Yeah.
Anyway, so which would have been even worse, right? And people that have not spent a second of their life thinking about women being raped on a daily basis, all of a sudden feigned this concern about women's rights to basically prepare the ground for a genocide, because Hamas raped women. And this is very, very harmful, because they made all these false claims about women being raped where it wasn't true. And then this again contributes to other instances in which women are actually raped and not being believed.
Yes. I think, it's a Hebrew accent to say Hamas, but it's actually not a Hebrew. It's a whole big complicated issue. The word is actually Hamas in Hebrew as well, but in Hebrew we don't have this sound anymore. It got deteriorated.
Everybody started to sing Hamas.
Yeah, because Hebrew is a constructed language. It's a revived language, but in many ways it's a constructed language that was constructed from ancient Hebrew to be used by Europeans who emigrated to Palestine as settlers and colonizers, like this girl over here.
Guilty as charged.
And I can say because I have, Arab genes in my body. So my throat is designed to go.
He's joking, just to make sure you understand.
I'm half joking. But Tamar cannot do this.
I can.
Say Hamas. No, say
Hamas.
Okay, close enough.
Yeah.
Okay, but she had to work hard for it. For me, it comes naturally. Okay.
I'm lacking those genes. Yeah. Yes.
What I want to say is that it's something that sexist people really love to use, really love to say. What they love to say is those feminists are just using the story that they are being oppressed to actually silence men, blah 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 blah, and they're not. It's disingenuous, and they're not telling the truth. And I think that every case where this actually happens
is a weapon in the hands of those people and is more justification for those people. Don't get me wrong. People who are sexist have a full responsibility for the fact that they are sexist, okay? But it doesn't mean that we have to play along with this, okay? And I think I think that when this woman, who is, by the way, this was being asked, she's not Palestinian. She is Jewish and full Ashkenazi, which means that in some aspect of identity politics, she is more privileged than I am because I'm a half Mizrahi Jew, okay? And not Ashkenazi Jew. So if I were to use this kind of identity politics bullshit, I could have used this against her, but I don't, okay? And I would not.
And there's also another aspect. I don't know where she's on that spectrum, but you're neurodivergent.
Yes.
And I think this is another disadvantage position in society. When you're neurodivergent, you're divergent from the norm of how most people process and communicate information. So this has made you feel different from most other people from a very young age, and this has in fact made you a victim of bullying and of ostracization way before you were anti-Zionist.
Just a fact
and
that happened.
If we're talking about trauma and repeating trauma and triggers, then this is such a trigger. You know, the thing that she
the whole
said
situation and the thing that she said was a very big trigger.
And this is an actual trigger. This is not a hyperbolic use of the term trigger when you say it in this, rather than someone saying something in kind of like an upset voice, agitated voice to you over a 10-second voice message.
Yes.
You know, and yet. And okay, this is so another thing that I wanted to say is to, for a moment, invert, just to imagine, just to show the kind of how grotesque it is, to invert the genders in this situation. If the genders were reversed, if this was all along a woman voicing criticism, she probably would have been shut down in different ways. Again, they would not have played the fact that she was a female rather than because they couldn't use that fact. They would just use the fact that she's Jewish or whatever. But if then a man came and wrote a message like
a dismissive message, pull yourself together, have a glass of water, and calm down.
Yes, exactly. That I don't think that would have been looked upon favorably. They would have gone against this person. They would have said, even though I really don't agree with her, and I think this is not a good discussion either, but don't be talking so aggressively towards her.
Yes, when a man speaks in such a condescending way to a woman, this is a complete no, right?
No. So it's a very
don't do it.
So it's a very double standard. And then, okay, so let's go to the next stage.
Next level.
If then, furthermore, later on, that man would have shared in the group, look, this woman now sent me a very violent and threatening message, and then this message would be shared, and I'm still shaking from it. How do you think the people in the group would react? Would they be on the side of the man? No, they would say, good for you, to the woman, good for you for setting your boundaries. And to the man, they would mock him for saying that he was still shaking, because men are not allowed to be sensitive or to feel things. So this is a very clear double standard. And this is very clear that this is another case of identity politics and of jumping on this bandwagon and using this irrelevant fact. In this case, again, irrelevant fact, because there was no physical threat to her whatsoever at any point in time.
Yes. And when she did this, she also hurt the feminist struggle, the feminist movement. Yes, I think, and this proves. And I think she doesn't care about Palestinians. I think she doesn't care about women. I think she doesn't care about liberation. I think she doesn't care about justice. I think she doesn't care about peace. I don't think she cares truly about anything. I think she is acting from a place of righteousness, of self-righteousness, okay? And in retrospect, I am really glad. So at this point, I left the group, okay? I was like, okay, this is getting. I wrote one message to defend myself that this was people basically explaining that this was people attacking me for expressing a political position that is not allowed within this group, and that everything that happened is part of this context, and then it all felt so toxic to me. I just left the group.
Yes, I also felt very, very bad at this moment, because I think I really kind of identified with your experience, not in terms of the fact that I've experienced it, but I just felt I kind of felt it together with you. I really felt like he was bullied. I felt so horrible. I just felt this I felt it very strongly.
Yeah, it's like a knot in your stomach, like something.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yes.
It's disgusting.
Yes, and like it's obvious that there's such a big difference between being ostracized and bullied like that, and between someone, sending a somewhat unpleasant voice message, which is obvious stemming from a place of being hurt, and not from a place of being in any kind of position where you can be domineering or can be misusing your power. So disingenuous.
So, and look how much we talked about her now.
Yeah.
Okay. Look how much we talked about her. Look how much we talked about the manipulation, about the ad hominem arguments, about all these things. Instead of talking about how Hadash is an accomplice of the Zionist regime.
Mm-hmm.
What's the important subject here? The important subject here is how political organizations that are led by Palestinians, by 48 Palestinians, or or include a lot of 48 Palestinians, sometimes collaborate with the Zionist regime in ways that increase the oppression of the Palestinians, that strengthen the Zionist regime, and that make it harder for us to dismantle and abolish the Zionist regime and replace it with a system that is more just and equal.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I wanted to talk about. This is the subject that I wanted to raise to begin with. Look at how little this subject was talked about. And this is the goal of such tactics, to not talk about inconvenient subjects. And this is exactly why I'm saying that this WhatsApp group, this leftist WhatsApp group, is actually full of collaborators.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why I'm glad that I left this group. This is why I'm glad that I'm not part of it anymore, okay? Because it can be very, very confusing. It's really hard when you live under such extreme fascism. It's really hard to know who your true allies are. A lot of people will present themselves as your allies. They will say, I am for the liberation of Palestine. I'm on your side. I am Palestinian, and so forth and so on. But they can be collaborators, and it's really, really hard to identify who is a collaborator and who isn't a collaborator. And I was inside this group for a year, over a year, okay, over a year, and I always felt this uncomfortable feeling that something was not really 100% in this group.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a very good way of seeing who's on your side and who's not on your side is to challenge the norms in a direct way.
Mm-hmm. It exposes it.
Yes.
And this is, I think, what actually can stagnate activism and stagnate revolution and change, is that someone starts opposing something and then they quickly align themselves with a certain movement, a certain camp, and a certain group.
Yeah, they call it a camp. Whenever someone uses the word camp, political camp, know that they are not true. Be suspicious immediately.
Yes.
To me, it's 100%. Like 100% of the time, when someone uses this term, political camp, there's something wrong. Okay.
Yes. Because then that group or whatever is going to have their own set of norms, and then you can start noticing that those norms are actually stagnating the change. They're keeping those people again in line, and it's not truly something that's truly for equality and freedom. And this is again,
it's not.
This is also a reason why I think anarchy is a inevitable part of social liberation for everybody.
Yes, and to achieve this, we need to understand. This is not purism, okay? This is just understanding reality. If you are part of a certain group, and this group controls what you can say, what you cannot say, what you can do, and what you cannot do, and guides your actions and your words, and by extension, your thoughts and feelings and ideology, okay? Then you are not truly free.
Yes.
And I think it takes a lot of effort to challenge these things and to push the boundaries so that you can become more and more and more free. You are never truly, completely free until we dismantle all oppressive systems, maybe then, okay?
And I think what Michael is saying, you gained a lot of insight, and in retrospect strengthens you going forward. And Yes, I very much agree with that. Yes. And I think this is there really aren't very completely definitive answers of how to deal with this and how to truly be able to change and to act. But being aware of this, I think, is a very important and necessary ingredient of it. And because otherwise you may think, and this is something that many people do, I think, also growing up when they have kind of this anarchist spirit or this kind of revolutionary spirit in them, is to think that they're the problem. And this is what everybody tells them. You have a problem with authority, and then you realize that the problem actually is authority and not you. And so this is really really important part of being revolutionary. Revolutionary in radical in terms of the fact that you really want to change the system and not to do just reforms and cosmetic or
like Hadash wants to do, by the way,
which maintains the system, and you see that the system has to be changed from its basic building blocks. So so in that sense, I think it is really, really powerful to be aware of it, because then it won't put you down. And I think many people also in the mental health realm have been told that the problem is with them, and actually the problem has been that they are not able to function within a society and a system that they experience as very oppressive, and they experience it because it is very oppressive.
A subject for another live session. But we have just crossed the 2.5 hour mark. We did not plan to go on for so long. We had other subjects that we wanted to talk about, but I kind of predicted this. This would go on for a long time. Okay. Do you guys want Tamar to go live with me more often? If you do, please write some words of encouragement for Tamar. I think you did.
I'm getting used to it.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That I think you kind of crossed, that barrier of embarrassment and worry and fear, like of going in such a public platform and speaking your mind freely. But I feel you way more comfortable now, and the comments were very public speaking isn't easy. And especially if it's public speaking where you say things that are not popular. Going publicly and saying the popular thing, that's nice. Okay, you get applauded. You will get applauded, and that's very easy. But going publicly and saying the unpopular thing, saying the thing that you truly believe in, and without thinking about the consequences and the social, the social ramifications of this is more difficult. And this is why I appreciate Tamar for doing this. It seems like people are really liking the way that that you speak, really liking the way that you balance my, high energies. You bring the calm and collected. But maybe at some point you will see Tamar going a bit more extreme as well. Maybe we'll see that. That's a sight to behold, just so you know. Okay, so let's make a list of a few subjects that we want to talk about in the near future. So we wanted to talk about, this is something that we've been wanting to talk about for a long time, about the recent awakening of liberal Zionists.
We didn't even
get to it.
Yeah.
We didn't even get to
next
it.
time we'll talk about that for sure, because it's really a big thing that's happening everywhere right now, and I think it needs to be commented on.
Yes, we started noticing it happening within Israel, occupied Palestine, the Zionist cult. We started noticing a lot of liberal Zionists suddenly object to what's going on in Gaza. And now I'm noticing it happening all over the world. We were about to mention a post I saw on Instagram from what's his name?
Tom York.
It's
just one example of many.
Just one example, and speak about all kinds of examples of people waking up. And we wanted to say what our opinion on this shift is, how real it is, how much we should trust it, how we should react to it, how we should think about it, how we should analyze it. I think this is a very important subject. And we want to go more deeply into the subject of norms and how they affect our actions and how we resist them, although this was a subject that we touched upon a lot in this conversation. We have a list of subjects. You remember more subjects?
Yes, there are more subjects. About the pragmatism versus the radicalism.
Pragmatism,
and this whole discussion that say if you say things that are too radical, or usually they'll say too extreme because they kind of confuse those terms, then you're not going to get anyone any progress, and you should speak differently, or you should embrace people from a wider spectrum.
So this is directly related to the subject that I just mentioned, because one of the key questions is, should we applaud people who are now 17, 18, 19 months into this genocide suddenly speaking against it, and very weakly? Should we applaud it? Should we criticize them for having been silent for so long? What is pragmatic here? What is the correct approach here? So this relates intimately to this subject. Also, we want to tell you a lot of other stories about policing of dissident actions that both Tamar and myself took part in. So we want to tell you a few stories from late 2023 and early 2024, when Tamar tried to speak out publicly against what was going on at the time, the beginning of the genocide, and what kind of horrible reactions and policing reactions she got, which admittedly made you not want to speak publicly anymore in these forums, because it felt dangerous, right?
Yes, and the social punishments are really strong, and it felt also so futile. Like, I'm not achieving anything by it, I'm only getting negative consequences for it.
And this also relates to the previous discussion, right? Because some of the people who are waking up now, some of them, the reason that they didn't speak up until now is that they were afraid. Okay, and this can be understandable. Okay, but we want to ask whether this is the main reason, or what it means if this is the reason. Okay, and so we want to speak about that, and we want to tell you another story about one of the more recent family dinners that I had with my family, where I tried to speak again after being silenced for a long time, to speak again about the genocide and what kind of reactions I got and how they managed to silence me. Yes, I was silenced, but I didn't go down without a fight. Okay, so we want to tell you about this. And what else? Oh, and of course, we want to start speaking more about the various connections between all struggles for liberation and against oppression. And specifically, we want to talk about the connections, the analogies, and the way that we can, that the two struggles inform each other in the cases of the struggle against Zionism and to free Palestine, and the struggle against human supremacy and the industries that cause a Holocaust to non-human animals, and human supremacy. Okay, so so we want to talk about the connections between these two struggles, and we want to talk about intersectionalism, that
and why it strengthens rather than weakens the struggles for
why
every
intersectionalism is important. Yes. What else? That's enough. Okay.
Yes, that's enough. There's many things that
come
up all the time, but
it's enough content for like 3-4 live sessions.
For sure,
And hopefully this will start a new series where we just have the discussions that we already have in our personal lives, because this is the thing that we care about most. So just take these discussions that we have in our personal life and make them more public, and just have them in a more public way, so that we can all learn from this together.
I think we should make it more frequent and less long, because someone sees a video of 2.5 hours on YouTube, I don't know, it's gonna be a little bit daunting.
It's really hard. But this one, I think we needed to
kind of, you know, there was a lot of things, you know,
Yeah.
around this, you know, instance,
Yes.
this
Yes.
case study.
Yeah.
I got tired watching the stream. We got even more tired doing the stream.
Yes.
Okay, guys. So thank you very much, and stay tuned for the next time where Tamar comes on the live session with me, and we have this this discussion. Thank you so much, Tamar, for
Thank
your.
you. It was great. Yeah.
For your, I really, I'm always like struck by how you can be both caring and nuanced and intelligent and deep and positive and collected all at the same time. I cannot do that. I cannot stay collected, for example. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching and for staying with us for 2 hours and 40
Long
minutes.
time, yeah.
And we will do another live session probably sometime next week. Maybe we'll see. Maybe Sunday evening. Sunday is the beginning of the week in the Hebrew calendar. Okay, maybe Sunday evening or Monday sometime, or maybe Tuesday. We'll see. We'll see what works. But sometime in the next few days, we'll go back live and continue these discussions.
And thank you everyone for the comments. It's nice to see the engagement. Obviously, I can't read it all, but I see people are talking to each other. It's asking and commenting. So it's nice.
there are like
That's
conversations
nice
happening like in
I
parallel.
like it.
Yeah,
It
really
makes it,
nice.
I think, a little bit easier for me that it's alive. You feel like you have some kind of contact with you know the people watching. So that's nice.
Okay, bye everyone, and free Palestine.
Bye, free
and
everyone.
free the entire planet, free all living beings from all oppression, and dismantle all oppressive systems, and liberty, justice, and equality for all. Bye.